Dan and Amy, and it is really just a lot to get your mind around. 2 weeks ago, we're talking about an imminent indictment of Paul Manafort and real trouble for Trump. Now we're talking about real trouble for Hillary Clinton that may rise to a criminal issue with respect to Uranium One. Real questions about the integrity of the FBI, certainly under the direction of Jim Comey. And the Wall Street Journal editorial board, no knee-jerk defender of Trump, calling for Bob Mueller to step down as special counsel. I mean, it is a sea change in a short period of time.
It's like a Hollywood script.
It really is. For more, before we get to our guest, Michael Goodwin, importantly, it is worth noting that just because this is focusing everybody's attention now doesn't mean that there weren't efforts afoot for months and months and months to obtain documents to answer some of the questions that are now being asked, such as, did the dossier trigger the FBI probe of the Trump campaign? Did Mr. Comey or his agents use it as evidence to seek wiretapping approval from the FISA court of Trump campaign aides? Why isn't Trump declassified, as Andy McCarthy has called for from National Review? Why isn't he declassifying the FISA warrant application and making it public? I mean, maybe he doesn't want to interfere with the special investigation, doesn't want to interfere with the House investigation of the special investigation. Here's Paul Ryan, though, on the FBI, after months of subpoenas that have gone unanswered, finally announcing they will come clean and provide the documents that have been requested by the House Intelligence Committee.
The point of these investigations is to find the truth and to make sure if laws are violated or mistakes were made, they're not made again, and transparency is what gets you that. It is our job under Article 1 of the Constitution, the legislative branch of government, to conduct full and thorough oversight over the executive branch. That is a really important responsibility for Congress. This is why we're so frustrated to have learned through the media aspects about this investigation that we've been asking for documents from the FBI for months. And so since yesterday morning, the FBI got in touch with us yesterday afternoon, and they have informed us that they will comply with our document requests and that they will provide the documents Congress has been asking for by next week, and we expect the FBI to honor that commitment.
For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by New York Post columnist and Fox News contributor Michael Goodwin. Has written a number of pieces on the topic, Russian collusion script flipped on its head, and also characterizing the Trump dossier as Hillary's dirtiest political trick. Michael, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning, guys. Thank you.
So why don't we start with the Trump dossier and the stories of material knowledge that the Trump dossier was paid for by a combination of Hillary Clinton at the DNC, at least in part, and that Hillary Clinton's lawyer, Mark Elias, was lying to members of the media for more than a year, and that they have been less than forthcoming the entire time. If this was just customary opposition research in the context of a political campaign, why all the palace intrigue?
Well, good questions all. And I particularly congratulate you on the way you were able to sum up all of these things that have happened in the last week or so. I mean, it is a remarkable turn of events. We obviously don't know where it's going, but it's not going where we thought it was going a week ago. And the clip you played of Paul Ryan getting those documents, I mean, they had to be not only frustrated but embarrassed that the Washington Post was able to get who paid for the dossier, because Congress had been asking that very question. They were trying to get, and to my understanding, some of the answers they got from Podesta and others connected to Clinton's campaign were dishonest. And if you lie to Congress, that's supposed to be perjury. So we'll see where all of this goes. But look, I think on the fundamental question of was there collusion with Russia, I mean, that seems that's still in the air. That's still a question. And if you just recall that we're sort of little by little getting dribs and drabs. I mean, even the fact that Facebook had these ads that no one had talked about. Mm-hmm. So I do think we're getting somewhere, but the picture is still cloudy. And the fact that the Clinton team and the DNC paid for the dirty work in Russia. Don't forget, this was done in Russia and involved some Russian government officials, apparently.
But then the FBI took that information and got subpoenas from it, or how did it?
Well, that's really what seems to be likely, and I cautioned or create caveats in my own writing on this because we don't know, but we have to consider the possibilities that the FBI used it to further its investigation, to justify its investigation. They apparently were going to hire Robert Steele, the ex-British spy who did a lot of the dirty work on the ground in Russia. And then the question is, did the Obama White House use this as a justification for unmasking names that came up in these FBI surveillance and leak them to the anti-Trump media in order to help Hillary Clinton in the campaign? I mean, all of these things fit together better because we know who paid for the dossier. And I just think that is a fundamental breakthrough in our understanding. But now we have to go and chase all of the threads that lead out from it.
And the question is Bob Mueller the right person to chase those threads? The Wall Street Journal, as I mentioned, opining not that Mueller's done anything wrong to date, but suggesting that he lacks the critical distance to conduct a credible probe of a bureau he ran for a dozen years. They call on him to step down over the conflict of interest that he has. Do you agree?
Well, look, I do. I mean, the Journal, as you mentioned, is hardly a solid vote for Donald Trump and everything he says and does. But I think they have laid this out very well, which is that Mueller is riddled with conflicts. And that has been an issue in some quarters all along. And I think President Trump was warned, if you fire him, Katie bar the door. I mean, there's going to be a landslide against you in Congress. And so Trump has had to sort of stand up and watch this happen. But now that the uranium deal happened under Mueller, he was the head of the FBI when all of this took place. And if there was an attempt to cover it up again, to protect the administration, to protect the Clintons during that period, that happened under him. And so I think when you have so many questions about him, and then, of course, his relationship with Comey is very important to this investigation. So I think it is time, because I think that Mueller has had a lot of time on this investigation, and it is, at this point, it is hard to imagine how anything he produced would be fully trusted. I think that's the essence of the Journal's position, and I agree with it.
Do you think he would step down, though, knowing all this? I mean, I can't see how he would stay in that position.
Well, look, I think that this is probably the beginning of the calls for him to step down. Now that it's the most credible voice to have done this, I think when we see members of Congress joining that, then I think we will have a real clear consensus that Mueller is no longer capable of producing a result that will be trusted. And that is the key here, because if this becomes just another partisan swamp or people looking to settle personal vendettas, which is what it sounds like now, it cannot be trusted. And this is too important. I mean, if we're going to say the Russian involvement in the 2016 election is something we have to clarify and guard against in the future, but if the people who are supposedly bringing clarity are themselves clouded with conflicts, it's not going to serve the purpose that we all agreed was necessary on some level.
The other big story this week was about Corker and Flake, Breaking Bad, and the president, two lame duck Republican senators, and of course this is a story the media wants to amplify. They want to amplify any consternation within the Republican Party, but it seems like at the end of the day, the Republican senators, most of them, closed ranks with President Trump. They're more focused on tax reform than Jeff Flake's calls for using the proper terminology when you address members of the Senate. And both the House and the Senate passed the budget framework for tax reform. So the flag has moved forward despite some of the quacking from those two lame ducks, yes?
Right. It is, again, it's another remarkable week in Washington when you think of that. Flake gave this, fire and brimstone speech on the floors of Congress about Trump, and Corker out there saying incredibly nasty things about the president, and he returning fire to both of them. And yet, as you say, the most important piece of legislation moves forward, starting with the budget, which enables the taxes to go through without 60 votes. So it is a remarkable time. And look, just on the politics of this, it is incredible to watch how the purge of the mainstream Republicans continues apace. The problem, of course, for Trump is, can you do that? Can you get a Congress that more is lined up with your agenda and your America First agenda and your view of what the country needs? Can you keep getting that Congress while at the same time getting legislation passed with the Congress you have? And that is the balancing act. And so far, the answer this week was yes, you can do both at the same time. That's a very big deal. And it looks, from what I hear, the Democrats have now conceded the tax reform is going to pass. And it's just a matter of the details on the state and local taxes, the question of 401k deductions, and there will be others, of course. But it looks like they have finally decided that we have to do something this year. Having failed on Obamacare, we have to make this work now. So that if that turbocharges the economy the way a lot of people believe it will, then I think that the Republicans would go into 2018 with a pretty strong hand despite the internal disunity.
He is Michael Goodwin, New York Post columnist, Fox News contributor. Michael, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you both.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago